Here's a letter from Omaha. I had to laugh at the frenzy over the comment from the North Korean officials that their talks with Secretary of State Mike Pompeo were, quote, regrettable, unquote. Had their comment been, the talks are to our greatest satisfaction with all our demands being met, we should all be worried. Critics of Medicare, oh, this was from Crystal Rhodes, Omaha, chairman of the Douglas County Democratic Party. Critics of Medicare for All should be ashamed of the blatant scare tactics as in saying 30,000 jobs will be lost. They will not be lost and will continue to exist because people will still be needed to process claims and access care. Or saying the government will make decisions about your health care. You mean like Republicans and private companies do already when they restrict things like birth control, which doctors you can see, and which procedures and tests are covered? At least with Medicare for All, voters could hold the policymakers accountable if they were unhappy with coverage. Are the Republicans suggesting only people over 65 deserve access to a doctor? If Medicare has worked for decades for the elderly, surely we can make it work for everyone. From James Reagan of Omaha. So now the Trump administration is going to use my tax dollars to protect farmers from the totally expected negative impact of the trade policies that he promised to implement. Is there even one Nebraska farmer who will go on record as criticizing and, better yet, refusing such a nanny state bailout for what they themselves brought on? Or to coin a phrase, isn't it time to put their own money, not mine, where their voices are? Juan Fernandez of the Bronx in New York has this letter. The Matthew Hansen column, Finding a Strong Voice, which appeared July 19th in the World Herald, has appeared on bulletin boards for the stuttering community and has been viewed in all corners of the world. It is a totally inspiring article. Kudos to this brave teen for showing on stage that he is so much more than stuttering. Many, many performers have had issues with stuttering. The website of the Stuttering Foundation at stutteringhelp.org has a list of famous people who stutter, which lists many entertainment people. There's also a section of biographical articles on some famous people who stutter, like Bruce Willis, Mark Antony, Marilyn Monroe, and Eric Roberts. And finally, here is a letter from Bernie and Kay Clark from Omaha. Driving down the West Dodge Expressway on July 23rd, there were two beam walkers on the overpass at 150th Street and West Dodge Road. This overpass is under construction and ends in the middle of the roadway. These two, who looked like upper elementary or middle schoolers, were on the beams above our head as we drove below. They might not yet have the sense to realize the danger, but contractors should make it virtually impossible for someone to be able to do this.
The following is an editorial from the Journal Star editorial board entitled Lincoln Again Gives Neo-Nazis Proper Retort. Hate made an appearance in a couple of dozen of Lincoln's little free libraries last week. Tolerance quickly crowded it out. More than 20 stewards of the Take a Book, Leave a Book boxes across the capital city reported finding neo-Nazi pamphlets sharing the shelves with children's stories and novels. Rather than responding with the discriminatory ideals that inspired the action, though, the owners made sure their beliefs were well represented, sharing messages such as hate has no home here and everyone is equal. Inclusion is a beautiful thing, but it's even more so when welcoming speech fills the marketplace of ideas at the expense of hateful ideologies. Nebraska isn't immune from the creeping filth of this new wave Nazism that's garnered headlines nationwide. Omaha previously reported seeing the same books produced by a Lincoln native in several of its little free libraries. A University of Nebraska-Lincoln student who posted videos espousing Nazi beliefs roiled the campus in the spring. Mary Beth Muskin, director of the Anti-Defamation League's Omaha-based Plains State Region, said the group reported a 29% increase in hate crimes and related incidents in the 3 states it serves, Nebraska, Iowa, and Kansas. Nationally, there's been a 56% increase in the last year alone. It's beyond time to fight back with kindness. When the indefensible rears its ugly head, and any work extolling the virtues of hate espoused by Nazism certainly applies, it's tempting to mandate silence for these despicable viewpoints. Yet the First Amendment exists to protect even the most deplorable language and actions. In the words of former Supreme Court Justice Louis Brandeis on the importance of the First Amendment, to avert the evil, the remedy to be applied is more speech, not enforced silence. But once again, Nebraska's response would earn the applause of the late justice. We're proud of it too. Nebraskans of all stripes banded together to condemn the hateful philosophy with one of love and inclusion. Rather than diminishing and discriminating their fellow humans as unworthy, they opened their arms to send messages that intolerance was intolerable and that everyone is welcome here. The message couldn't be broadcast more loudly. Signs besides dozens of little free libraries, many of which now include stories of the persecuted or refugees, and the Hate Will Never Win movement initiated by the Nebraska men's basketball team that swept across campus, indicate acceptance has once again won the day in a state whose motto is equality before the law. A microscopic few voices are peddling evil. They've got the right to say what they want, but nothing obligates anyone to listen to this hate. And with a far louder chorus drowning out the pitiful words of bigotry with words of tolerance, nobody should.
Here's an editorial from the staff of the World Herald. A reasonable consensus appears to be building among Omaha's elected leaders about narrowing the window for fireworks sales and use in the city. That's good. Action on the issue, generally along the lines of what Mayor Gene Stothert is proposing, is in the public interest. As eardrums across the city can attest, many Omahans enjoy shooting off fireworks for days as we celebrate our nation's birthday. But a large number of residents find the prolonged blasting and booming to be excessive and inconsiderate. Omaha leaders are right to respond to that concern. A city ordinance currently allows Omahans to set off fireworks within a 10-day period, June 25th through July 4th. Stothert proposes cutting the season in half to 5 days, June 30th to July 4th. She also suggests decreasing the allowable daily time for fireworks. Setting off the whizzers and boomers would be permitted from noon to 11 p.m. from June 30th through July 3rd. On July 4th, fireworks could be set off from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. Currently, fireworks are allowed from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. throughout the 10-day period. The period for selling fireworks would be changed from June 29th through July 4th, reduced from the current June 25th to July 4th period. Omaha Police Chief Todd Schmaderer said his department received 1,246 fireworks complaints this year. Officers issued 24 citations. Limiting the season to 5 days would probably cut the complaints in half, he said. Fireworks concerns have also increased in Council Bluffs, where the city council is considering reducing the allowed days. At present, the city allows residents to set off the BAMs and crackles June 29th to the 30th and July 3rd and 4th. From June 29th through July 8th, Bluffs Police responded to 256 fireworks-related calls, up sharply from 136 calls in the 2017 season. As several testifiers told the City Council on Tuesday, the best approach would be to have a uniform fireworks schedule in the general Omaha area. Whether that can be achieved is another question, but Omaha officials are right to broach the possibility. La Vista Mayor Doug Kindig had the right idea with his plan to raise the matter at the next meeting of the United Cities of Sarpy County, a group with representatives from the county and 5 Sarpy cities. Each summer, Omahans get a sense of how enthusiastic and in some cases how irresponsible their neighbors can be in the use of fireworks. This year seems particularly excessive for many Omahans. Our elected leaders are right to consider adjustments that would best serve the overall public interest. And related to that issue is Katurba's editorial cartoon for today, which shows a closed door with a sign that says Omaha City Council. And outside this door are a collection of many kinds of dogs, and they're all howling, barking, yipping, growling, making all kinds of dog noises. And from inside the closed doors comes a voice that says, when it comes to fireworks, apparently we forgot to give one group its say.
These are the letters to the editor in the Lincoln Journal-Star. There's two of them, and the first one's from Earl Dyer of Lincoln. There seems to be a chorus of don't spend anything for public good statements opposing use of the Pershing Center site for a new library on the grounds that the site should be put back on the tax rolls. Let's be clear that using the site for a library would not be giving it up for nothing. We need a new library, and getting one will involve acquiring a site. Add to that, the Pershing site would be a good location. Add also that no private industry that would pay taxes has come forward with a plan for use of the site. And also add that using the site would free up the current site. And also add that the Pershing site might leave some room for parking, as garages are now full downtown. None of this would involve giving up Pershing for nothing. Let's have an open and unprejudiced discussion in public of the advantages or disadvantages of that site. And let's try to avoid name-calling comments like giving up Pershing for nothing. We are a growing city and must pay attention to attempts to keep our public services, like the libraries, up to date. A new public library would be a crown jewel of the kind that attracts businesses and that also attracts the kind of educated population that pays a lot of taxes. Andy Ringsmith of Lincoln writes, will someone please tell me how Mayor Chris Beitler sets the city's spending priorities? Somehow, a few years ago, the mayor managed to find $3.2 million for an almost never used, but gold-plated, diamond-encrusted bike lane whose sole purpose seemed to be to additionally muck up downtown traffic flows. But during the same time, maintenance needs on our fire department fleet have been well known and documented by the Journal-Star. Yada, yada, yada. A different funding source. Cry me a river. A city dollar is a city dollar. And now it's apparently to the point where even more trucks need replacing. How convenient this fake emergency comes to light from the mayor's office a few short months before the fire station and radio system sales tax is due to expire. I would just about bet the rest of my paychecks for this year that by election time in November, Beitler and his 4 council cronies will be begging you and me to re-up that tax to pay for his neglect of our firefighters. I sincerely hope it isn't Beitler's house on fire the next time a fire truck blows an engine. Instead, how about we build more bike lanes and give our firefighters brand new Huffy 10 speeds? Or perhaps we can go retro and have a team of horses pull the trucks and ambulances to the emergency. How cool would that be?
With that, we're going to turn now to our Living Today sections of our papers, and we'll start with the column from Amy Dickinson. Ask Amy. Dear Amy, I've been married for more than 30 years through good times and bad. Right now, times seem bad. My husband has been retired for 8 years from his job as a local trucker. He mostly worked nights. When he was working, he blamed his bursts of anger on lack of sleep. Well, many years post-retirement, he still has outbursts of swearing and yelling. Back in the day, I would engage in the confrontations. Then, when I was about 40, I made a decision that I just didn't want to fight anymore. Instead, I disengage. Adults should be able to have conversations without shouting and cursing. I told my husband that I don't feel loved and I don't even feel liked. Therefore, I'm not interested in having sex with him because he doesn't even seem to love or even like me. He has not confirmed or denied or disclosed his feelings about me. There have been occasions when I've been drinking when we have had sex, which I do not remember in the morning. What would you call that? Signed, Wondering. Dear Wondering, I would call that either blackout drinking or a date rape drug accompanied by sexual assault, or possibly a psychological phenomenon known as disassociation. Disassociation is how some people cope with trauma, by basically detaching themselves from reality. This is an armchair guess of mine. I'm not a psychologist, but if you are dissociating, it could have started with your healthy choice years ago not to engage in your husband's rages. Disassociation is an extreme form of detachment. If your drinking isn't causing you to black out and have memory lapses, then it's possible that you are reacting to your sexual experiences with someone you don't love or even like by basically blocking out the whole episode. If you are drunk or drugged, you cannot legally consent to sex. I assume the same standard applies to psychological injury or impairment. Your relationship with your husband seems to be thoroughly broken. It would be best for you two to part unless or until you two figure out how to communicate peacefully. And obviously, you should take a look at your alcohol consumption. Dear Amy, I just received an invitation to a friend's wedding. The marrying couple is requesting that all of their guests bring a potluck dish to share at the reception. This is not a small family wedding. My first thought was that they could not afford a caterer. However, they are providing both a sandwich bar and an open alcohol bar. I don't understand the reasoning. Does the dish count as my gift, or is the couple expecting both? I won't even get into the food safety issues. Is this a new thing? Signed, Confused. Dear Confused, I wonder if there is a marrying couple brave enough to host a throwback wedding where the reception consists only of sparkling drinks and cake, and guests sip, sup, enjoy, and go home. Modern weddings have become festivals. With an open bar, your friends seem determined to get their guests good and drunk. For the money they are spending on alcohol, they could instead buy a few salads for their guests to enjoy along with their sandwiches. I don't think potluck weddings are a huge trend, but they do happen. For hosts to throw one successfully, they should put a lot of thought, planning, and effort into it, giving guests some direction, cuisine-wise, asking guests to provide ingredient lists, and providing the means to keep hot foods hot and cool foods cold. They should also provide designated help to take in food as guests arrive, set it out, and then take away and wash empty containers. You should not count on any of this happening. If you decide to attend this wedding, yes, you should bring a dish to share. In terms of the food safety risk, you should always try to find out exactly what you are eating, and if in doubt, only eat my Aunt Lena's molded green salad. It contains both pineapple pieces and marshmallows. No, your potluck offering does not count as your wedding gift. And finally, we have this letter to Amy. Dear Amy, worried dad described his son-in-law, a physician, as being increasingly absent-minded and accident-prone. I have ADHD, and much of what was described in this letter would apply to me. People with ADHD are often misdiagnosed. Signed, a reader. Dear reader, many readers added their speculation to my own. My concern was that this man's symptoms seemed to be getting worse.
This is John Roseman's parenting column, Living with Children, and it's entitled Newsflash, Children Are Weird. Most of the stuff today's parents worry about, and let's face facts, the worrier in question, the worrier supreme, is almost always the mother. Not because of some weakness, but simply because she consumes parenting media that, as a rule, generates a lot of worry. It's not worth the emotional energy, left alone, it will come out in the wash, as they say, they being parents who understand that children are odd. Yes, children are odd. Sometimes they are even weird. They do odd, strange, weird, bizarre, inexplicable things that, in most cases, concerning most kids, have no meaning at all, in the sense of being indicators of deep, dark problems embedded in their supposedly delicate psyches. Furthermore, most of the odd, etc. things they do are completely unrelated to and disconnected from the manner in which they have been raised. You are not the cue ball in your child's life, I tell my audiences around the USA. Your child was born with free will, both a blessing and a curse. 50 plus years ago, before professional parenting experts, me, began muddying up America's parenting waters with psycho garbage, there existed a parenting vernacular that is no longer in common use. It consisted of pithy phrases like, children should be seen and not heard, and you made this bed, so you are going to lie in it. One such pithiness was, every child has a mind of his own. In 8 words, that expressed what I used more than 50 to express in the above paragraph. My mother, her mother's mother, and so on down the line knew that no matter how good their parenting was by any standard, their children were still capable on any given day of despicable behavior. And no matter how smart their children were, they were capable on any given day of moronic behavior. So are yours. You are not your child's personal savior, put in his life to save him from the wages of sin, to ensure his admission to heaven or his passage to perpetual nirvana, whatever your taste may be. So back to the point. Have you ever noticed that the parents who seem to have the most well-behaved children tend to be, as a rule, very laid back? They're not worrying about much, if anything. That's because worry is self-fulfilling. When you worry about something, the something in question becomes more likely. Worry is also paralyzing, meaning that if the something you worry about does happen, your head is filled with so much confusion that you don't know what to do about it. Parents who don't worry when worrisome things happen simply deal with them one at a time. Because they don't worry, they are capable of acting effectively when their kids confuse free will with freedom. They don't think that every stupid, odd, sociopathic thing their kids do predicts some future apocalypse. They just deal one thing at a time. The typical parent who is reading this is a good parent. You are doing your best. People who don't fit that description don't read stuff like this. So relax, take a load off. Let the chips in your child's life fall where they may and deal with the resulting messes one at a time, with the calm conviction that you're doing what you should and that it's high time your child started doing what he should.
Here's some letters to and from Heloise. This first one's from Bill and Joan W. from Orrin, Utah. Dear Heloise, my wife and I enjoy traveling to foreign destinations, but this year we're traveling the USA. We took a trip up the coastal highway, driving from San Diego to Seattle, and loved it. So many Americans forget what a beautiful and interesting country America happens to be. On an American road trip, there's no airport delay, no lost luggage, no set schedule, and many things to see and do along the way. I highly recommend seeing America for folks who are looking for a fascinating place to vacation. Here's a letter from Carrie M. from Santa Fe, New Mexico. Dear Heloise, about 3 years ago, my husband and I decided to install a pool in our backyard. While I know some people love their swimming pools, we don't. And these are the reasons she has listed. Routine maintenance is expensive, as are any repairs to the pool. Our city required additional fencing around the pool, even though we already have a fenced-in yard. Our homeowner's insurance went up significantly. We now have water bugs and mosquitoes in abundance. We are not, and that's in capital letters, going to install another pool if we move. We should have investigated our decision a little better than we did, but now we know the pitfalls of pool ownership. Here's a letter to Heloise from Janelle D. of Lebanon, Indiana. Dear Heloise, working in a large department store, I see a lot of purchases women make that are mistakes, especially in clothing. So many women buy clothing that does not fit them correctly because they say, I'm going to lose weight, and that size 10 pair of lavender jeans will fit perfectly. Please tell your readers, if it doesn't fit correctly, if it itches or is uncomfortable, don't buy it. The sequin jacket on its third markdown might be lovely, but if you have nothing to wear with it, put it back on the rack. Save your money and save the store from another return. Tony P. from Henderson, North Carolina asks Heloise, what is the hourly rate for babysitters? Tony, it varies from city to city, from metropolitan to rural, from professional babysitter to high school student, and number of children or adults. However, nationally, the average rates are $7.50 to $15.50 an hour, plus a tip. You can negotiate a rate with your sitter depending on your needs. And finally, Allie in Ohio tells Heloise, one thing I've found that clears my head and house is this. I use an old tissue box to save my various receipts. The plastic on the top makes a perfect deposit slit, and if I ever need to locate an old receipt, I know where to find it. I write the start and end dates from multiple boxes, so everything is cataloged. It eases my mind.
Got anything else in living and entertainment?
Well,
if we don't, we'll move to business.
Well, I think we should move on because I'm done.
We'll go ahead and move to the business section, and this is from the Associated Press, Executive Insights on Staffing Challenges. In a tight labor market, small business owners need to know that if they can't compete on the salary side, don't try. The better plan, says Paul McDonald, Senior Executive Director at the staffing firm Robert Half International, is to focus on culture, focus on learning, focus on the opportunity to take on multiple roles more quickly, and to be really in a learning environment. Most of his advice about leadership and culture. Question: what advice would you give your younger self? Answer: early on in my career, it was build, 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 run fast, run hard. I would focus on being more empathetic to everyone. A lot of people think I did communicating is talking. Part of communication is very active listening. I was given 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use them in proportion. Question: how do you pay attention to your competition? A, we're not obsessed with it. We're always obsessed with, are we the best? What do we need to do to stay on the top? The old mentality was stick to your knitting and you'll be successful. You can stick to your knitting, but you also have to look around a bit more because things are changing so quickly that you might have to branch in one direction or another. Question: what advice do you have for other small business owners? Answer: when you're recruiting individuals to come to work for you, accentuate the fact that it's a flat organizational chart. You're going to work extremely close with owners and executives. There are great opportunities in small organizations to learn many things that you may not learn until later in your career in a larger organization. And finally, question: how do you manage work-life balance? And the answer is very carefully. I put it on my calendar when I know I am going to be meeting with my spouse. I take care of my health, take time out with my family, and I volunteer a lot.
Is your business revenue growing at a 20% clip? Fewer than 9% of publicly traded companies are, and here's why it matters. The ultimate goal is profit growth, and unless sales are growing, profits can be improved only via cost cutting. And there's a limit to how much a company can cost cut its way to prosperity. So companies with rapid sales growth have at least the raw ingredients to become stars. Here are 5 that I like. Broadcom Incorporated, AVGO, shares have appreciated tenfold in the past decade, with rapid revenue growth fueled by acquisitions. Previously based in Singapore, Broadcom moved its headquarters to San Jose, California in the past year. It makes semiconductor chips and assemblies used in smartphones, tablets, electronic games, and other applications. Recently, President Donald Trump blocked its attempt to acquire larger rival Qualcomm Incorporated. Broadcom earned a sparkling 41% return on stockholders' equity in its latest fiscal year. Yet the stock sells for only about 10 times estimated earnings. An intriguing small cap choice is Consolidated Tomoka Land Company. It owns 36 properties in 13 states, including golf courses, apartment buildings, and other properties. Most of its properties are in the southeast and west. It also owns 5,500 acres of raw land in Daytona Beach, Florida. I'm always looking for a combination of a cheap stock and a highly profitable company. Consolidated Tomoka sells for only 8 times earnings and earned more than 22% on stockholders' equity last year. In 2015, Dollar Tree Incorporated acquired the Family Dollar chain for more than $8 billion, making Dollar Tree a powerhouse in deep discount retailing with more than 14,000 stores. At least for now, the brands remain separate. Dollar Tree has had some problems integrating its former rival. That, plus investors' hatred these days of the brick and mortar retailers, explains why Dollar Tree stock fetches only 12 times earnings and less than 1.0 times revenue. And at today's stock price of about $86, I think it's a bargain. And I should have noted that this column came from John Dorfman, who is a columnist in the world, syndicated columnist for the in the Omaha World Herald. Finally, Facebook faced a day of reckoning as its shares plunged Thursday in the company's worst trading day since going public in 2018. The 19% drop in Facebook shares vaporized $119 billion of the company's market value and the largest one-day loss in market history. CEO Mark Zuckerberg saw his net worth fall by $16 billion. In a sign of just how bullish investor expectations had been running, though, the collapse merely returned Facebook shares to a level last seen in early May. At that point, the stock was recovering from a battering over a privacy scandal. Late Wednesday, Facebook warned that its revenue growth will slow down significantly for at least the remainder of the year and that expenses will continue to skyrocket. Analysts attributed the shortfall largely to European privacy rules that went into effect in May.
The market continues its trend of kind of being up and down and generally lackluster. The Dow is down almost 0.4% as of 15 minutes ago. The Nasdaq is down 1.5%, and the S&P 500 is down 0.75%. And Coca-Cola is looking to make water turn free water into bigger profits. Can a machine that dispenses water for free also turn into a cash stream for Coca-Cola? The world's largest soda maker is testing a fountain that lets people fill reusable water bottles with free filtered water, but also offers the option of paying to add bubbles and fruity flavors. It's an example of how the maker of Fanta, Sprite, and Powerade is searching for new ways to make money as Americans cut back on traditional sodas. For now, Coca-Cola is testing just one Dasani Pure Fill machine on the campus of Georgia Tech across the street from its headquarters in Atlanta. It says it plans to expand the test on a rolling basis this fall to 20 machines on campuses in 15 states, though it did not specify locations. The concept: you can have filtered water for free or swipe a credit card to add bubbles or flavor for 5 cents an ounce, plus a 15-cent transaction fee. So filling a 20-ounce bottle with bubbles and flavor would cost $1.15. You can't get sweeteners and other ingredients. The idea hitches a trend that has no sales potential for Coke, reusable water bottles, to one that does, sparkling flavored water such as LaCroix. If it catches on, it would help Coca-Cola squeeze money out of an increasingly popular habit that could otherwise hurt its business. When they have these filling stations on campus, there's a lot of transaction. There's a loss of transaction, a loss of interaction with your consumer, a Coca-Cola employee explains in a company video. Reusable water bottles and fountains designed to refill them have surged in popularity as people grow more concerned about plastic pollution. Sink and faucet maker LK makes popular varieties of a refill fountain, but is not involved in Coke's machine. Artie Lyde, director of global drinking water at LK, said the refill fountains became popular first on college campuses and have spread to office buildings, airports, and gyms. Mary Grant, campaign director at Food and Water Watch, said she is concerned the Dasani Pure Fill machine would be a way for Coke to advertise its Dasani bottled water products, which would be counter to the benefits of water refilling stations. Food and Water Watch advocates drinking tap water citing the environmental toll of bottled water. Coca-Cola began testing the Dasani Pure Fill machine about a year ago. A Georgia Tech representative says the school isn't receiving any proceeds from the machine since it is a test. According to Coca-Cola, people opt to pay for bubbles and flavor about 10 to 20% of the time. The company wouldn't give revenue figures or other financial details about the machine. It says the expanded test this fall will look at how much and how often people are willing to pay for bubbles and flavor. And Apple also let people submit payments and track how much water they're drinking. Kim Drucker, Director of Innovation at Coca-Cola North America, noted that the test consists of just one machine, but says the company sees much broader potential. We were excited to see how much engagement there was, Drucker said. For Coke and Pepsi, the growing popularity of water has posed a challenge. Even with plain bottled water, which both companies sell, the profit margins are generally not as high as on other drinks because people are not as loyal to a specific brand with water and tend to buy whatever is cheapest in bulk cases. So Coke and Pepsi have been nudging people toward pricier waters, such as those that come in stylized bottles and are marketed as being specially filtered. Both have also jumped into the bubbly flavored water trend. Coke said this week that its Dasani Sparkling experienced double-digit sales volume growth.
WellCare of Nebraska is proud to bring you today's reading of the Omaha World Herald and the Lincoln Journal-Star. For more about WellCare, call today at 1-888-255-2605 or visit www.wellcare.com/Nebraska. Well, it's 11:46, and we're going to move now to the sports sections of our paper. From the World Herald, 4 former Huskers and 2 from other in-state colleges were named Thursday as the latest inductees for the Nebraska Football Hall of Fame. The group includes 3 longtime NFL players and defensive end Mike Rucker, punter Kyle Larson, and running back Danny Woodhead. The other 2 former Huskers are offensive lineman Dan Schmidt and Bob Sledge. Former Chadron State defensive end fullback Casey Barron rounds out the honorees. This year's Hall of Fame class will celebrate with a dinner at the Nebraska campus September 14th and is set to be introduced at Memorial Stadium prior to NU's game against Troy on September 15th. Well, and I thought there was more to that story. Hold on a minute and I'll see if I can find it. Sorry about that. Okay, here it is. Woodhead is as celebrated as any Nebraska athlete, though the 2004 North Platte graduate never received an NU scholarship offer from Frank Solich or Bill Callahan. The 5'8" running back instead thrived at Chadron State. He twice won the Harlan Hill Trophy in 2006, 2007, Division II's version of the Heisman, and eventually enjoyed a 9-year NFL career despite going undrafted out of college. He retired in the offseason. Rucker was a major contributor on Nebraska's 1995 and 1997 national title teams, recording 17 sacks and 40 total tackles for loss during his career. He added 55.5 sacks and 421 tackles across 9 NFL seasons. Larson still holds a Nebraska record with 195 punts and was a first-team All-American and finalist for the Ray Guy Award in 2003. The 3-time All-Big 12 selection played 5 seasons with the Cincinnati Bengals. Schmidt and Sledge paved the way for many Huskers during their time on the offensive line. Schmidt was an honorable mention All-American and an All-Big 8 pick at left guard as a senior in 1975. Sledge was a first-team All-Big 8 selection at tackle for NU in 1988, when he helped Nebraska to an NCAA rushing title and conference crown. Barron was the first Chadron State player to earn both All-America and Academic All-American accolades in the same season. He and Woodhead are 2 of 3 Eagles in history to be named the World Herald's Nebraska State College Athlete of the Year. Barron won the award in 2000, and the Sargent native racked up college totals of 182 tackles, including a school record 35 sacks and 7 forced fumbles. He also scored 11 touchdowns as a fullback.
In Husker football recruiting news, Logan Smothers was already virtually certain, but he and his family piled in the car and drove 13 hours just to be sure. The Athens, Alabama crew drove all the way to Lincoln for a Thursday unofficial visit, knowing full well how it would likely end. So Smothers, a 3-star quarterback, knew just what to do when he found himself with his family and head coach Scott Frost in Frost's office at the end of the visit. He jumped up, got excited, threw his hands in the air, Smothers told the Journal-Star on Thursday night. He just gave me a big hug. The 6'2", 180-pounder became the charter member of Nebraska's 2020 recruiting class when he gave his verbal commitment to Frost. Then Smothers' dad, Shane, went and found quarterbacks coach Mario Verduzco, ushering him into Frost's office. I stood up and I looked at him and he was like, "Are you for real?" And he was pumped up, Smothers said with a laugh. Verduzco has good reason to be. He identified Smothers as a promising prospect and offered him a scholarship back in mid-May. Smothers first visited Nebraska in mid-June and also camped at Ohio State, Auburn, and Mississippi State that month. His camp performances ratcheted up interest from around the country, including from Urban Meyer and the Buckeyes, but Smothers didn't receive additional Power 5 offers. All along, I wanted to do it, and since the last visit, I made up my mind, Smothers said. Smothers started as a sophomore at Athens High, passing for 2,851 yards and 21 touchdowns per his Huddle profile. He's also a capable runner, and according to Allcom, rushed for 719 yards, 7.5 yards per carry. Let me change the page here. And 10 touchdowns in 10 games last fall. Smothers told the Journal-Star he turned in an 11-second flat 100 meters time during his sophomore track season this spring, and at the Buckeyes camp ran 4.48 in the 40-yard dash. Smothers is considered a 3-star prospect by 24/7 Sports and Rivals. The 24/7 Sports composite pegs him as the number 12 dual-threat quarterback in the nation for 2020, while Rivals has him slotted number 8. As he and his family got to know Verduzco and Frost, the connection grew quickly. He won't arrive on campus for nearly 18 months, though. He is already planning on enrolling early in January 2020. But he's so sold on the Huskers that he doesn't feel the need to extend his recruitment any further. I wanted my mom to see the campus, first of all, Smothers said, fittingly from an Arby's somewhere between Lincoln and the Kansas City area, where the family will pit stop on the way back to Alabama. But mainly, I just wanted her to meet the coaches and get a feel for them, and the way I did, and to get to know them a little more. I mean, I'm going to be gone for 4 years, and she's not going to be able to come with me. So I just wanted her to see that she could trust the coaches and everyone there, and that I would be in good hands. Smothers is the 4th scholarship quarterback to commit to the program since Frost was hired, joining Adrian Martinez, enrolled, Central Florida transfer, and Wahoo native Noah Verdral, enrolled, and 2019 prospect Lou McCaffrey, verbally committed. Frost staff was busy this summer extending more than 150 scholarship offers around the country to players who are entering their junior seasons. And now Smothers will take a leading role in trying to help shape the class. That's a big thing for me, Smothers said. I really want to take on that role and help recruit and help bring guys into the program. I want 2020 to win a championship, and I'm going to do what it takes to get guys here in order to do that. I'm really looking forward to it. And how many mothers want to go with their sons for 4 years of college?
Okay, from Chicago, every day Stanley Morgan takes his puppy on a walk. He puts a leash on Lil Louisiana, a 4-month-old American bulldog, and walks from his apartment to downtown Lincoln. Morgan had always wanted a dog, never had one. Finally, he figured, why not? He broke one of Nebraska's oldest records a season ago with 986 receiving yards. Surely he could handle a pup. He picked out Lil Louisiana, pronounced like Louisiana, his home state, from a shelter in May and brought him home. Easy, as Morgan calls him, can already sit on command and hold out his paw to shake. I love him to death, Morgan said Monday at Big Ten Media Days, beaming. Very chill, he's just like me. On walks, the 6'1", 200-pound receiver loops around downtown and campus with his puppy. And usually, not long into his walk, he will get spotted and ask for an autograph or pose for a picture. Morgan will smile and oblige, but still, even after years in the public eye in Lincoln, all this attention is still weird for Morgan. There's a perception of Morgan, maybe because of the way he dances at practice or how he points to camera when media is allowed to take photos and video at practice, that he's ready and willing to be the center of attention. But in reality, being comfortable as the star and leader of men is something Morgan has had to learn. One of the best wide receivers in Nebraska history is still learning how to be a star, and with that, how to be the face of a program. It's like wearing a new suit, you know, Morgan said Monday. It's just new. When Morgan decided to return to Lincoln after breaking Johnny Rodgers' 1972 receiving record, he saw the attention it brought and the hype that came with his name. He's on the Big Ten West preseason honors list and Biletnikoff Award watch list. And when he turned down an opportunity to enter the NFL draft early, he decided he needed a change. Just to be that guy, to be that leader, Morgan said. So I have to come every day ready to work. This is new territory. In past years, Morgan tried to avoid the spotlight. Even just a few months ago at a Friday Night Lights camp, he wasn't on the field goofing around or talking up four-star recruits in front of cameras. He was on the sideline playing with a toddler, the son of a friend. The toddler would wind up, run up to Morgan and hit his knee, and Morgan would fall over. They did it over and over, obscured from most observers by the horde of high school receivers along the sidelines. Even during his historic season a year ago, Morgan spoke to the media only 3 times. As a sophomore, he often ignored the idea of attention, exiting the locker room after games wearing sunglasses, rolling on a hoverboard out of Memorial Stadium. But this year, he showed up to Big Ten Media Days, smiled and chatted with reporters from all over the country, nattily attired in a maroon jacket with peach stripes and black slacks, wearing a gold watch, black shoes with short black socks. The outfit would have played well at the NFL draft. I had to come out of my shell this summer, Morgan said in Chicago. I was that quiet leader, lead by example type guy, but I'm more vocal now. Quiet leader, yes, but Morgan has always been loud, senior defensive end Mick Stoltenberg said. The team is used to his screams before practice. Morgan is usually rapping along to the pre-practice playlist, and after practice, he often sticks his nose in interview scrums using a cleat to mimic a voice recorder. Stan's the guy that when we're in the bind, he's going to be the person cheering for us, giving people hands, bringing back up the vibe so that everybody feels confident in what we're doing, senior offensive lineman Gerald Foster said. What's new to the 2018 version of Morgan is his maturity and off-the-field intensity. Coaches tasked Morgan with holding other receivers accountable. And so far, that's been a little uncomfortable for Morgan, who for 3 years has been the lovable, non-confrontational teammate. Nowadays, he's not averse to stepping on some toes for the good of the team. After a voluntary 7-on-7 workout this summer, Morgan stopped a few young receivers before they left the Hawks Center. They showed up late that night, and that, Morgan said, doesn't fly. I had to give punish work to a couple of receivers, and I had to step out of my comfort zone and do that, Morgan said. I'm usually not the guy who has to do that. He made the guys do up-downs starting at the goal line all the way to the 50, 1 up-down per 5 yards. They're not hard-headed or anything. They're great guys, so I don't see that happening again, Morgan said. But it just took me to do that to get those guys to learn. Coach Scott Frost called Morgan arguably Nebraska's most talented player and said he's coached guys like Morgan before, where his happy place is the field. Stanley's been a great teammate since we've been there, Frost said. He's done everything we've asked him to do.
Real quickly on the Thursday's games with the Major League Baseball, Angels 12, White Sox 8, Yankees 7, Royals 2, Mets 12, Pirates 6, Rays 4, Orioles 3, Phillies 9, Reds 4, Nationals 10, Marlins 3, Dodgers 8, Braves 2, Cubs 7, Diamondbacks 6, Twins 2, Red Sox 1, Athletics 7, and the Rangers 6. And it looks like it's time for us to wrap up another day of broadcasting for the newspaper read. This is Bob Gotting. It's been a pleasure reading for you today, and have a great weekend.
And this is Beverly Leidig, and try to get out and enjoy this beautiful weather. We'll see you again next week.
Thank you very much, Bob Godding and Beverly Leidick, for doing another
I texted the guy that one of my other partners,
You're tuned to the Radio
like on
Talking Book
and he
Network
just goes,
in Omaha,
"Really?"
Nebraska.
I said, "Did you know that Tim died? Tim Hart died." He goes, "Wow, no." And he's in the middle of Ragbri. He's over in Iowa somewhere.
They got a good week for that.
Oh, they did.
Man, gorgeous.
These two go ride it every year, him and his wife.
Yeah, sometimes it's a beast this time of year, so that's good.
This has been a good year for us. So we're getting part of our spring. They just swapped places. June was hotter than July.
That's what Wally and I were saying. And now it feels like it should be September.
Yeah.
You know, this
It does.
is coming on August.
It does. It feels
It's very
strange.
disorienting, isn't it?
But it's just been weird for, like, I have a garden, vegetable garden, and I have not been getting any peppers at all. And I went to Wenninghoff, I don't know if you know who they are, but I went to them and I picked up some onions. And I went, "Where's all your peppers?" And they said, "You didn't get any." They said the first path, the first generation, it was so hot, none of the flowers would,
Right.
none of the flowers they wouldn't set fruit.
Yeah.
And they said, now we're waiting for the second generation to come in.
I've got a couple in pots, and I got one, it was a black pepper supposedly. They're putting on, but they're distorted. They're just, they're tiny little, they don't look like peppers at all.
That was like my early girl tomatoes, the first ones I picked were about this big. I'm like, are you kidding me? It's like ridiculous.
I know.
So, and then my green beans haven't put on any fruit whatsoever.
Well, I've got my second batch growing, I planted another, and they've grown plants and everything, but there's.
I've got lots of flowers, and then the Japanese beetles decided to get after the flowers. So I'm not getting any beans because they're eating all the flowers.
Yeah, those dark.
I should shut this down. Well, thank you.
Yeah, good. Good day. Okay. I'm gonna get something to drink. I had the windows open because it's been so nice.
Oh,
but
yeah.
now I have a sore throat from the pollen.
From the pollen, yeah. It's really, especially if I'm a singer. Right? Last week, today I wasn't so bad, but last week I was hacking all the way through.
Oh, I know you were.
I sort of kind of understand. I know, like.
Making myself some tea, Ryan.
I think you should,
Well,
if it'll pep up your day.
I got the windows open because it's been so nice.
Yeah.
And now I'm paying for that because of the pollen. But to make my throat sore.
Yeah, you can't win, can you?
I know it. It's all right.
Well, I hope the tea helps.
Yeah.
Are you gonna come back next week?
Well, I think I still have to, yeah.
Oh, good.
So I don't think I have to, but I think
You certainly don't have to.
I think I'm
Very
on
much appreciate it if you do.
more, maybe two. You told me, what's Bob?
I think we're also coming back August 13th, so
I
that would
guess
mean you
it
have
is
2 more
two.
Fridays.
Okay.
So,
I'll
good,
do it.
well, that's good for us. It's always a pleasure when you come in.
was supposed to ask for today. So.
Good job, Bob.
Thank you, Ryan. You too.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
You got your meeting.
I do. I'm set, brother. I'm set.
Yep, I don't even, it's smell on my back.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah, enjoy the weather today. Good morning.
Nancy Dirks.
Yes, sir.
How are you?
Oh, running late.
Well, you made it just in time. You're set.
Probably not enough time to do both. But
Yeah.
All right. Have a good night. Dave.
All right, thank
See
you.
you. Ryan, burrito man.
All right, Bob.
Like your Friday meal, your Friday lunch.
That's most of my day.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get cheese burritos. Sometimes I get spicy taco. These are the bean and cheese.
So I from decades that you don't want to know. I would just try to Google. Alexa one for me. That's why I said, hey Google, why you talking with hey, and you tell God me. I'm like, that's kind of creepy.
That's perfect timing is what that is, that you can on yourself.
But it's the one that we just talked about, and yeah, Google started.
You get your gardening show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you can check your levels, we processed it, so it wasn't overly loud, but you can still tell it was
It was a
disturbing.
little distorted.
But it was still
But
understandable.
it's weird because my meter won't run. But they were running hot, but they weren't running lit.
Okay, we can do a test by this.
Yeah, well, I'll just factor now, because we're kind of.
And if you back it down, that's what I tell people whenever they go and record to studios, it's easier to turn their volume up on our end than it is to turn. Because if your volume is a little low, it'll still process it and still push it up.
Hey, Ryan. How are you? All right. Good.
John.
We'll see you, Ryan.
How are you, sir? I'm good. How are you? Good. How was your vacation?
Good. Very nice.
Good. Yeah. Well, have you back? We did, we managed, barely.
Thank you. Okay.
Bob Guiding's tentatively down on August 24th to do a board community conversation.
Okay,
And our schedules don't mesh for that.
okay,
Okay,
thank you.
uh-huh.